We believe by Friday, Alastair Clarkson will tell the world where he is going as a coach. His manager, James Henderson, broke a 48-hour silence to tell Footy Classified tonight, quote, "Clarko is now moving quickly to a decision." That's his direct quote. So I think he's actually made his decision up now and he's now pushing towards it. What will that mean for either North Melbourne or Essendon? Well, time will tell. Caro, you've been following the story again today. What is the latest that you've got for us in regards to the chase for Clarkson and particularly what's happened to Ben Rutten?
Well, that's one of football's more shameful stories at the moment. I mean, I wonder why we have a coaches' association. I wonder why we talk about human resources of football clubs when you look at the way Ben Rutten has been treated, whether or not he had the confidence of the players. He was visited today at his Mount Macedon property by David Barham, the new president of the Essendon Football Club. He wasn't sacked, but there was a full and frank conversation in which David Barham made it clear that Essendon are looking at Alastair Clarkson, and beyond that, they can't really say exactly what will happen. My understanding is I think that the cut will come tomorrow. It's extraordinary that it hasn't happened already. There's a suggestion that some players want to be coached on the weekend by Daniel G and Siracusa.
Yep.
I can't say whether or not that will happen. I must say I think Ben Rutten has shown extraordinary grace and strength under huge pressure this week, and it is just weird to think that you would hang a bloke out to dry like that. I know he's going to get a payout. He's not the only one under pressure, and this story is not all about Ben Rutten. It's also about the CEO, Xavier Campbell, and the head of footy, Josh Marnie. We'll come to them in a moment.
OK, hold fire for a moment because...
And the North Melbourne Football Club, by the way, are meeting with Alastair Clarkson and or his manager, James Henderson, on Friday.
And
that's
they're very comfortable.
The
they're very comfortable with where things are in North Melbourne at the moment and as comfortable to go to plan B if need be. But they also believe that if Clarkson decides to go to Essendon, well, then fair enough. Maybe he wasn't the guy they wanted in the first place.
Where do you see plan B as being, Ed?
I would, if I was North Melbourne, you know where I'd go for plan B? It means we need to go for plan B next year and get somebody to sit here. He's the most credentialed bloke in football. I haven't spoken to you about this, Ross. It's just off the top. But if I was either one of those clubs, I'd be going straight to this bloke and you wouldn't be too far off the pace next to Alastair Clarkson. That's for another day. Let's get through this one, though.
Sorry to ambush
Lordy,
you, but people have asked me at several football clubs about you, Ross, and what your intentions are.
What'd you tell them?
I said that.
You got anything to say to the media?
I don't speak for you. You know my views.
No.
I think you should coach again. I love working with you, but I think you should coach again.
Thanks, Caroline.
Yeah. Lloydie, I want to come to you, mate. My mail's the same as Caro's, that tomorrow Ben Rutten will find his destiny. And as reported on 3AW by Neil Mitchell and criticised by some in the media, I have a firm belief that Gene Siracusa was earmarked on Monday to take over the position. Now, by the time we get to Saturday, we'll find out. How do you think it goes from here? And watching from afar, what's your thoughts on what's happening with Ben Rutten and what the club needs to do in the next couple of days?
And I think that last week when the meeting, the board meeting was called upon, once the numbers went, the board was split and all those types of things, that it wasn't necessarily about Ben at that point in time. It's about the culture of the football club. Yeah. And it's not the culture isn't good. There's a lot of unhappy people and you can see the way in the performance. It's not travelling well. So I've spoken all the way along. I only want what's best for the club and that has to be looked at from everyone at the top. So the president's now being looked at and he's now been stood down as now a board member. Then you've got to look next at what Caro's saying, the CEO, and the decisions that have been made and the culture within that football department. And then the next will be Ben Rutten. And then obviously the head of football in Josh Marnie. So they all link together, Ross, and I've used these spokes in the wheel a line that you've used. You've got to get good people in those four key areas and the rest will filter down from there. And I think that's where you've got to start from. Start with the president, now look at the CEO and work down from there.
So when we talk about culture, a simple definition is the way we do things or they do things. Yeah. So would it be fair to say, looking at it and what David Barham's had enough of, it's been the insular reviewing, it's been the appointment of their own consistently and it's gone nowhere. And is that what you mean by poor culture? It's just so insular and they protect each other and it's
it's not a productive,
political.
Political, not a productive working environment.
And you sound as though you're getting it a bit more than that, though.
Well, I'm saying that we've gone nowhere, or the club has gone nowhere for so long, and that's where I'm pleased that I'm hoping and fingers crossed that Dave Barham's come in and he's going to do this properly.
So lack of process.
Process, yeah. And it's
has he got the support of the Essendon family, Dave Barham?
Well, I think that we're going to see how strong he has to be strong here, and he has to stand up to, because again, there's always political animals in football club, in business, and he's got to be strong here to see through that, to do what is best for the Essendon Football Club.
Probably should have made a call on Ben Rutten by now.
Well, to my understanding is that the last week wasn't even about Ben. They'll get to Ben. And from Monday, Matthew, to Wednesday night, something should have happened. You've talked about the board, Ed. Let's have a look.
Let's have
exactly
a look at
what happened last week. And
let's have a look at our graphic here, Caro. And we've got that's the way it stood as far as the factions on the Essendon board. But there was one person who had to cross the floor for Dave Barham to become the president. That person, we believe, was Kevin Sheedy. Now, interestingly enough, there you see the former footballers there, and Sean Wellman and Simon Madden on the other side. Paul Brasher's left, and Peter Allen, who was the Vice President of Essendon. And then we've got the other members of the Essendon board with Dave Barham. He had the numbers, he became the President. Paul Brasher staying on. Now, I suppose the interesting thing from there is that you would assume that Kevin Sheedy then supported that David Barham was going after Alastair Clarkson. And that would have been a fair assumption until Sheeds got on Adelaide Radio last night.
Man, I think Clarkson could be a person moving into North Melbourne. I wouldn't be surprised to take him down to Tasmania. You just never know if Alistair says, look, this is a bit bigger picture than just me going to coach a team in Melbourne. This might be a huge move for him. And it could even involve Tasmania.
And, Cara, you and I both spoke to various people at North Melbourne who are absolutely furious that Kevin Sheedy would be speaking about their club in Tasmania and about a situation so close to home for both clubs at the moment.
He's lost the plot, Kevin. I don't see that his role on the board is tenable after those comments. I mean, Matthew, you talk about quick fixes and little things that look good for the club. Putting Kevin on the board, to be brutal, was one of those. Wonderful, wonderful, one of the greatest Essendonians ever. But he has not been a strong board member, and he turned on, I mean, he doesn't support Ben Rutten, but to go on a paid radio gig and send another club or suggest another club should maybe move to Tasmania. I don't think that's what a board member should do. I think the North Melbourne board are furious. Essendon are really disappointed. It goes to an instability around the football club. Now, Xavier Campbell and Josh Marnie believe that they are a good selling point for Alastair Clarkson, I'm told, because, you know, they're the incumbent CEO and footy boss, and what you say is correct, but they say he's not going to come to a club where there's going to be a full clean-out unless he's got his own people. You've also got Mark Robinson, who is sort of, let's face it, he's a James Hird spokesperson in the media. He's opted for Alastair to go to North Melbourne, and he's an Essendon man. Now, I just can't help but feel that there's a James Hird spectre haunting this entire conversation.
Well, Kevin Sheedy, not only did he send North Melbourne to Tasmania, that's a different issue, but it flew in the face of David Barham, who he crossed the floor to put into power. David Barham's clearly going after Alastair Clarkson. That board member that was the balance of power to support him, the next day on radio in South Australia, has anointed that coach to go to North Melbourne. So it talks to... What's the agenda?
Kevin's very close to Adrian Dodoro. That's another faction. Of course, Dodoro, we know, has fallen out with Josh Marnie. That's toxic.
Caro, is the point...
Mark Robinson, you know, and he's unashamed. He wants James Hird to come back and coach Essendon. I think that would be a retrograde step. I don't think that can happen.
Where I also say with the leadership of Dave and what a big job he's got is, again, you hear that there's 6 and there's 4. Some will say, Clarkson's our man. Let's get Clarkson. He's the best out there. Let's go and get him. Then the other faction will say, we haven't done a process. We have to do a process. So, again, if Alistair's looking to make a decision on Friday, I don't see how he picks Essendon.
Can we dive into the internal review? Madden was associated with it. Wellman was associated with it. And Sheedy was associated with it. Then it comes out, Josh Marnie, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been run in... that he did it on his own. So that faction needs to almost resign their position and go.
They're superfluous. And just to, go to the instability, this is Alastair's 2008 Premiership captain and now successor at Hawthorn today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I know that he'd be big on stability. He'd want, to make sure that everyone's wanting the same thing, whether that's the board or the administration or the football department. He's always been big on stability and, something we've worked hard on here, and we have that in a strong way.
Why wouldn't you, if you're a Hawthorn man, have a crack at Essendon after the schmozzle of this week? But he makes a good point. It's not a great selling point to Alastair, unless David Barham, and he's running this really, is saying to Alastair, don't worry about all the outside noise. Sheeds will be gone. All the ex-players will be gone from the board. He'll be gone, she'll be gone.
Can I put it to you that for a long time everyone's looked at, from around football clubs, looked at Essendon and said the board's too big. They've got too many people wearing the blazers down there. Most boards, I think the right size for a board at a football club's 7. Yeah. Not much more than that. Then you can control it. Too many leaks, too many factions. Bombers have always had strong coteries involved in the club in a big way. They raise a ton of money, but for that money, they actually want influence as well. I know at Collingwood when I came in, one of the things I did, because I wasn't really beholden to anyone, neither's Dave Barham, even though he's been there for a while, that you have to get on top of everybody in those situations so there is one voice. Come in and support us, but anyone who rats behind you, you've got to kill them straight away. Does Dave Barham have to maybe go to an AGM at the end of the year and say, right, we want to have 7? Do we need to? I think I'm hearing you saying that this is the first shot of many for the Bombers to clean up the whole club.
Yeah, I think this is only the start of it with what has gone on with Paul Brasher. I think you might be right, Ed, that there's look at the board and have changes to the board. And also, I don't think the board has had a voice. I think it's been, whether with Xavier Campbell and Paul Brasher, they've been dominant forces. I'm not sure the board has had a voice. That's why David Barham has been so frustrated and threatened to leave in recent weeks.
So Xavier's clearly been weakened by the fact that this negotiation has really gone on above him with Alastair Clarkson. But do you believe that probably Xavier should go now? I mean...
Yeah, well, I think the power is with David now, and I think that they've got to look at why the culture of the football club is not strong and where it needs to be, and why the success or the lack of is filtering down to the players, and that falls on Xavier. Yes, potentially.
Ross, can I ask you, do you think that maybe there's a bit of a worry at Essendon that if Clarkson now comes in, he'll bring the broom in as well, and there might be a few people who've been there for a while who won't be there.
Is he paid to go on the board?
No, they wouldn't be paid.
It's an ambassador role, paid role.
But he wouldn't be paid on the board.
I think there'd be positions in doubt, and everything in football gets looked at. I think you're right. CEO, I mean, he sits above it. He's been commercially successful, but ultimately your core business, as David Barham said, a laser focus is going on football. So, I mean, culturally, have there been processes for the appointment of Worsfold, who was before Wilson? Rutten comes in.
Mark Thompson.
Yeah, Mark. So where's the processes and have they been the right people? So you've got to own them ultimately, and you measure by results. It's a winning business. I go if you're not winning. Clarkson goes. You don't win, you go.
We've got a lot of news to get through.
Yeah.
No one can call it, but I still believe Alastair Clarkson will go to Essendon. I just think it's too compelling, but I don't know.
What's the advantage over North Melbourne? Why not North Melbourne?
Much bigger club, a much more underperforming list, much bigger upside. And let's face it, everyone says North need him more. North only won a flag a year before. Essendon only has won one flag a year after North.
Also coaching on Anzac Day, coaching dream time. I think it's...
Who do you pick?
I've got no idea. It worries me, because I'd love Clarko to coach Essendon, because I think it's what the club needs. But I think with all this uncertainty, and if he wants to choose a club on Friday, it'd be tough to choose Essendon with everything that's going on.
Is David Barham, is the catalyst Clarkson, or is the bigger issues you're talking about? He just had enough and there needs to be change. It's beyond the coach.
Yes, I think so.
I think it's about Clarkson too, though. Who are you calling it?
I'm not sure. Okay, I think you'll go to Essendon, the big club.
Ed?
Well, it's a big club, big problems, and they'll be expecting big results. Goes to North Melbourne, you'll have a 5-year run and all those other things. I don't know, I just thought, speaking to Sonia Hood today, that she believed that they have put a compelling proposal in front, that he's actually taken that one until finally Essendon have made their run. I don't know.
David Barham wouldn't have done this if he didn't think he could land him.
No, you wouldn't have thought so. Anyway. Time will tell. We reckon Friday all will be revealed, and maybe tomorrow Ben Rutten will either decide that he'll coach one more game or pull the pin, or be told that Gene Siracusa is coaching.
Big wages, Bill, $600,000 for the coach. If Xavier Campbell does go, he's got a 2-year deal.
I tell you what, they want to do something good with Ben Rutten on the way out the door, because he could come back for them for some other damages, I reckon, down the track if they keep kicking him around the ashtrays.